Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. We're here outside Celtic Park. As you can see, first time in a while we've done this, but we've just spoken to the man himself, Brendan Rodgers. He's officially been unveiled as manager of Celtic, and he knows how to draw you in. He really knows how. An exciting time ahead of us. Let's talk about everything Brendan Rodgers said today upon his return to Celtic. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, it would be much appreciated. I'm hoping that the elements don't surprise us as we go on through this recording, but if we get it over and done with pretty quickly, we should get home in time. A cracking couple of press conferences there from the new Celtic manager, of course, starting with the mainstream media and then coming on to speak to us in the fan media room. So a lot to go through, a lot to sort of digest from Brendan Rodgers today. If you were down at Celtic Park, you would have seen him outside. He came out and gave a hello to the fans, a wee apology for everything that's happened in the past. But I think the main thing from what we've learned today and what we learned at this press conference is about looking forward, not backwards. Yes, a lot of us were hurt and it took a lot of time for some of us to get over everything that happened with Brendan Rodgers, but I think the main thing that I got from today's press conference is how excited to be for the future, and how good it's going to be having Brendan Rodgers back at the helm of Celtic Football Club. The vision put forward seems real. It seems believable, and it's something that I think that every fan should now try their best to get behind. I understand that people will still have their thoughts and their differences that they probably can't put aside for now about Brendan Rodgers, but when you listen to what he's saying today alongside Peter Lawwell and Michael Nicholson in that opening press conference, I think it's clear to see that there is a shared vision at the club now, and one that could be revolutionary for Celtic Football Club. By the way Brendan was speaking, it was going to take something special for him to come back into management so soon. He said it today in the press conference. His plan was to take a full year out of football. He was going to refresh, he was going to reset, and then he would come back into the game, and probably at the level of the English Premier League. But instead now we're in a situation where he's decided to come back early, manage Celtic, and that's got to be for good reasoning. And it sounds like there is a shared vision between him and the higher-ups at the football club to actually do something beyond winning trebles at Celtic. What that may be, we need to wait and see. We don't know how far in Europe this team can go. We need to see how the recruitment goes, how everything else goes. It is going to be a very interesting, very exciting few months, to say the least. The transfer window alone will be... It'll be very, very interesting, but I am very excited from everything that we heard from Brendan Rodgers here today. Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies. It's a great song, isn't it? But it also resonates with everything Brendan does and says. He dropped the G word. He dropped a huge statement in that MSM press conference. If you were watching, you'll know what I'm talking about. Guarantees. He is guaranteed. Yes, he's guaranteed he's going to be here for 3 years. That was his words. As I said, we'll wait and see what happens. We don't know if it's going to be the case or not. It might get to the point where in a year's time or 2 years' time we look foolish once again, but he seems driven. And I'm not going to sit here and say I believe every single word yet. I think that there's such a long way to go. He's been in the door 5 days. But what I will say is it's a pretty big statement to come out, sit down in that chair and say he guarantees to be here 3 years. As I said, there's got to be something here in place which is extra motivating for someone of his calibre and someone who's been here in the past to come back and make a statement like that. I, for one, would welcome 3 years. I, for one, would welcome beyond 3 years of Brendan Rodgers if we get the right results on the park. But it's a pretty big statement, and if that's his way of making up to Celtic fans to be here for the full contract and then we'll assess it come the end, that would be huge, you know. And it leaves us in a position now where, I suppose, and I don't want to look this far forward because we don't know how the next 3 years will go under Brendan Rodgers. It could be successful, it could be unsuccessful. You know, you can't rule that out. But what I will say is, it leaves us in a position now where I think that in 3 years' time, if he was to leave the club, I don't think there will be the same sort of reaction that we maybe got from Ange leaving a couple of weeks ago. You know, if we expect that 3 years, should we expect to see more than that? Don't get your hopes on it, up on it yet, but it's such a long way to look forward, and we'll take it all with a pinch of salt, and trophy by trophy, hopefully we'll start to see a more structured and outlined vision of where the club is heading on a bigger scale. And if that all happens in the space of 3 years, I for one will be a very happy Celtic fan. Now, I can't obviously play the whole press conference in its entirety. They'll all be on YouTube now, both the mainstream media and the fan media press conference. They'll be easy to come across. They will be somewhere. But what I will say is the difference in the two press conferences was nice. It wasn't like he was harsher in one room, or he was just... It just felt like when he came into the fan media room, it was a lot more footballing. It was a lot more down to business, talking about what's happening on the park and behind the scenes. I think we got more of an insight as to what the operations and the inside of the football club will look like moving forward. He was very, very straightforward. He was very honest, and he was very, he's that way. He's got an aura about him, Brendan Rodgers. I think he drew everybody in that room in, with everything that he was saying, with every question asked of him. And it was very clear in the room to us as supporters that this is going to be different this time round. Yeah, we want the same success. We want treble after treble. We want 7 out of 7. We want 9 out of 9 if he's here for the full 3 years. But I think it was clear to see in that fan media press conference today that there is a difference in Brendan Rodgers. There is a kind of revitalised manager, a better manager, and someone who's just ready to upgrade on what he done last time. And I, for one, cannot wait for that. Now, you'll all be asking, what did you ask him, Ryan? What was your question? What did you say to Brendan? What did he say to you? Well, I can say we're now best friends. We've shook hands. I looked him in the eye. I said, Brendan, I forgive you. I forgave you for a long time. No, I'm joking. But, the question I asked him was quite straightforward. It's quite difficult when you're third last in the room out of about 12 people. You're the third last to go, and basically everything's been taken. But I really wanted to hear his insight on Callum McGregor and his influence at the football club right now, and how much easier he makes a job like this at Celtic. So this was my question to Brendan earlier on, and his response, and for me it was one that it makes me appreciate the captain a whole lot more as well for playing such a pivotal part in bringing back an elite manager like Brendan Rodgers.
Hi Brendan, glad to see you back. Last time you were here, you were incredibly fortunate to have a great captain and a great leader in Scott Brown. This time around, obviously, you're working with Callum McGregor. Back then, in your first spell, did you foresee him becoming the leader he has, and how easier does it make your job having someone like him around?
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier. He's steeped in the club now. He knows the history, he knows the expectation. I think when I came here first, I tried to develop his personality, because he's a very humble guy, and when I seen him in training, he was too safe. And so we developed that personality, and he gained confidence from the training and the work, and then he produced on the pitch. And by the time I left, he was an amazing player for us, and he clearly had learned from Brownie, but he has his own mind, he has his own mentality, and he's continued to grow and develop. And now I arrived back here, and I'm so happy that he's here. I met him in New York. He was one of I met with the board and the staff, but I wanted to get it from a player's perspective. And my relationship with him was strong when I was here last, so I had a lunch and spoke over the squad. He really was enthused about the squad that was here and what I could maybe do to help from working the last time together. And he spoke with that passion and that drive that I wanted to see, and it was a really important meeting for us.
The wind is picking up, the rain is coming, winter is coming. But what I will say is, the answer in relation to Callum McGregor was fascinating to hear in regards to how much work must have been done in Brendan's time here to help develop McGregor into the player he is. Because as we know, before Brendan came into the club, McGregor we knew was a young star, he had potential, but he hadn't quite found it yet. And I think Brendan Rodgers really did help shape the player that he's become, and hearing him speak about that firsthand was obviously very interesting, because McGregor has become a captain now which we can rely on as much as the previous, Scott Brown. Someone whose boots were very hard to fill, someone whose armband was very hard to fill, but Callum has done it tremendously. And the relationship that already exists between Brendan Rodgers and Callum McGregor is going to be very, very pivotal to the success of this team moving forward. So that'll help bond some of us together. together. That'll help bond, obviously the players that are now existing in a very different squad for Brendan Rodgers. And yeah, you can't underestimate the influence of Cal McGregor. You see it for Scotland over this international break as well. Constantly consistent, constantly great, and he'll be one of the main tools in this Brendan Rodgers side. Finally, to wrap it up before the rain does come down upon me, I'm just going to talk very quickly about what to expect moving forward over the next few weeks. Trust me, everything that was said today, we will be talking about it in great depth in more videos in the Celtic the Thunder podcast. We'll probably talk about it a hell of a lot, so don't worry, that we're not going to leave any stone unturned. We will cover all aspects of what Brendan said today. But moving forward, that's the big question. How much money are Celtic going to spend? Who's coming in? Who's going? It's what's on everybody's mind. No matter who the manager was going to be heading into this next season, what was next for Celtic in regards to what we're seeing on the park and how we develop as a football club. I think that Brendan done a good job at keeping expectations low, but also letting us have that room to dream, because interestingly, in the fan media press conference, Brendan was very open and very honest about players who weren't good enough in his last spell here, and we know that was part of the reason for him going, because apparently the backing wasn't there for him to sign players. The way that Brendan put it was, we were signing a lot of players who were here, and we needed players who were here, and I think that he was very open and honest about how that needs to be the difference this time round. So what I will say is, be excited. Don't get your expectations too high. Don't let yourself down come the end of the summer if we haven't signed the stars you want to sign. But I think there has been guarantees put in place, and I think that Brendan Rodgers has made it quite clear that there has to be something done that's different, and that's what we're going to get this time round. So, it's going to be interesting to see what players do come through the door. Of course, we've already started with Odin Thiago home, and there has been talk of another couple of players from Melbourne City, and obviously from Japan, South Korea as well. So yeah, going to be fascinating, but I think that Brendan has offered us enough optimism to be excited about where this team can go. Right, from me today outside Celtic Park, I'm going to wrap it up there. It was a proper interesting experience today, sharing the room with Brendan Rodgers. I'm even more excited for what's to come now. I think this is a manager who really does have the tools and the pull factor to make us maybe a force in Europe once again. But we've been here before. We'll just have to wait and see. But pleasure to speak to him. Great to see him back. And I am very excited. I hope that you are too. So we'll be back on the channel over the weekend, and we'll be back with the podcast and such next week. As I said, no stone will go unturned. But from me today, that's going to do it. I'm going to head before it starts to bucket down, and yeah, enjoy your weekend. Like and subscribe. I'll see you all next time.